And a very warm welcome and good morning from France. My name is Harry Benjamin. I'll be guiding you through today's coverage. It's an absolute pleasure to have your company. We're at the circuit Paul Ricard in Le Castellet, not too far from Marseille here in the south of France. It's round one of the 2021 International GTOpen Series. We're here for our second qualifying session of the weekend as the cars make their way out on track. The first drivers for each team went out yesterday to set the grid for yesterday's race. Now is the turn for the second drivers to go out and set the grid for this afternoon's race. We'll also be seeing in this session the GT Cup cars in action because we are merging with them as well for race 2. So 30 car grid for this afternoon's race. It's going to be very exciting, and it was quite the action-packed race yesterday in GTOpen. It was won by the Team Lazarus Bentley duo of Pecklin and Pepper after a couple of safety cars, some big incidents as well, especially with that number 15 car of Dominic Schramel and also the JP Motorsport car Christian Clean taking each other out in the first few corners. But they, we've already had someone off through the gravel. You don't see and the sand. You don't see that around here very often. So someone's found the sand trap there and gone off. So it must be a bit slippy out on track, Elliot, because it did say well, it's a bit damp, it is a bit drizzly, but it's not a fully wet session by the looks of it. But it's getting grayer by the minute, and it is cold here in France today.
Yeah, they've declared the session as wet, so that normally just means you have to have the rain light on so drivers can see what we're doing. See many of them with the headlights on as well. Visibility isn't that bad, but it always helps so you can see your braking points. But it does mean the track is going to be very cool, very slick. It's going to be really hard to get temperature into the tyres and the brakes. And with all this traffic as well, it's just going to be really hard to find space because we have over 25 cars on track today. Yeah, what's going to be
the issue, as I suppose some of these guys will find, is that yesterday, of course, there was way less cars on track to qualify, so the traffic's going to be an absolute nightmare for both the Cup cars and the GTOpen cars because they're going to come a cropper on a few people that they didn't have in yesterday's session.
Yeah, we're having the combined grids as well, with the GT Cup Open cars being several seconds per lap slower than the top GT3 spec International GT Open cars as well. It means that pace difference is going to make it even harder. Normally it'd just be, if you're on a flying lap and someone else is on a warm-up lap, that's the difficulty. But here you could have people who are also on flying laps, but because the machinery's a very different pace, it's going to be really hard to navigate them and navigate the corners as well, as the Vincenzo Suspiria Racing Lamborghini just slides straight off the track.
Yeah, Yuki Nomoto at the wheel of that, and he had quite an action-packed race as well. That Lamborghini really getting into a good scrap in the midfield there, along with the likes of Adam Carroll as well yesterday. So a really fun race for them. Sadly, they didn't make the best of that and fell to the back of that pack in the end, but they'll be hoping to avenge for that today. Giuseppe Cipriani had a good run as well in yesterday's race. He was one of the drivers who made up the most amount of spots from his grid position. So hopefully he can qualify a little bit higher up on the grid. But we're looking at it. He's in the car there. It looks like there may be a potential problem, but we'll see. They might just be firing things up because he's got a couple of engineers around him having a look in the garage as we follow the number 48 of Nico Bastian and Marcus Sattler there, who looked so strong yesterday at it for so long, fighting in that top battle and then faded away.
Yeah, the second stint of yesterday's race was so
and a spinner
different to
for the JP Motorsport car, who got in all sorts of trouble yesterday. So Christian Clean was at the wheel of that yesterday. He hands over to Patrick Kaprinski for today, so he's had a spin. So it's clearly very cold, not grippy out there at all. 2 spins already. We're not past 5 minutes into this session yet. So that JP Motorsport car having a bit of heart in mouth moment, and they'll think of yesterday where it was turned through. We've got another car cutting across the chicane there. So drivers struggling to stay on track, and that Patrick Kaprinski car has yet to get going either, and that was involved in a huge crash yesterday with the number 15. Let's take a look at that spin. So he's gotten out onto the curbing actually, and then lost the rear and had a couple of spins actually, a couple of nice pirouettes there. And that's not going to be
720 possibly there.
That's not going to be good for the tyres, is it?
No, and if he stalled the engine as well, that's going to mean everything cools down even further. Also, I think with these cold temperatures, asphalt, which is a combination, and we've actually got a red flag. The session has ended just as the Trans Am Eurocar, which we didn't get to see much of yesterday, so we'll talk about it quickly now. It's a semi-spec vehicle, so it may look like a Mustang, isn't actually a Mustang. They essentially just put the body of a Mustang-looking car on, and they develop it for GT3 regulations and GT4 regulations, so it's quick as possible. So yeah, in the very short time we had on track, Adam Carroll was the only driver to set a flying lap, a 2-minute 13.864. That means he's provisioning on pole by almost 7 minutes, with Yuki Nomoto having the fastest of the outlaps. But I'm sure they will restart the session for that.
Yeah, the JP Motorsport car has gotten going, so I would presume that actually, even though most of the cars are coming in, they'll get this session going as soon as possible. The cars are allowed to wait in the fast lane there while we have the little pause, hoping to go green. But I think we should be able to go green pretty soon, because that car is now up and running with 25 minutes and 27 seconds on the clock. Stop that. So we will not lose any time there to the red flag. So it will still all be fine for all the drivers to make sure they set a lap time, but no real competitive lap time set yet, with Adam Carroll topping the charts at the moment. And Adam Carroll had a really good run yesterday in that Balfe Motorsport car, along with Sean Balfe as well, the 2017 Pro-Am champs. And they started off, if we look at the Audi R right there, they started off quite low down in the order, but when Adam Carroll took over the car, they really managed to get involved in that proper midfield scrap, didn't they? And actually made the most of it, and especially with Nomoto struggled, managed to get past that Lamborghini eventually, but it wasn't particularly easy.
No, the Lamborghini is very good on the exit of the corners, so we had 2 battles going on at the same time with the 2 VSR Lambos, and it just got all a bit dramatic through that. I think with these cold conditions, as we're looking at one of the Lambos again actually in the pits right now, seeing inside the car, it's going to be pretty chilly in there, especially with the window open. Might be worth closing it while you're stuck in the pit lane.
Put the seat warmer on.
Yeah, so during winter, Paul Ricard, yesterday we discussed their sheep, but they also reprofiled a lot of the corners with new asphalt, and asphalt's a combination of bitumen and other sticky materials essentially. So when the rain comes down, because we had a bit of overnight rain, it essentially seeps down into the ground and pushes the oil in the asphalt up to the surface. So the oil comes onto the track. It doesn't look oily, but when you're trying to grip with tyres that are moving at 100 miles an hour, you can feel it's oily. And I imagine that's what's caused several of the spins, especially through the first sector of that, where they have reprofiled several of the corners to aid racing, was the intention of the circuit designers here.
Yeah, and we have had rain overnight as well, or very early this morning, so it's going to be a very green track either way you look at it, and there's been no support races before this session either, so it is the greenest of green you can get on a Sunday as well, and the temperature is only about 14 degrees Celsius too, so going to take a lot to warm these cars up. And just on that though, make a note of the runoff areas, famous for the circuit, Paul Ricard, the blue and red stripy runoff areas, but don't be fooled, because track limits a huge issue here. Lots of lap times being deleted in yesterday's qualifying session as well. If you go out to the black and blue stuff, or the blue zone, it's okay. It's just a bit of asphalt instead of gravel. Although there are occasional sand tracks, which we saw going again as we get going. Green flag, pit lane back open. And then, though, you don't want to go out too wide, because that blue zone can drag you out to the red zone deeper off track, which is more abrasive and can cause extreme tyre wear, because it's a much grippier surface. You can see there the red stuff there. You don't want to get on that, but of course, if you're forced out wide by the blue stuff, it sort of drags you out even further. So it's not going to do you any favours. And there is the site turn 3 of that big crash we had yesterday, where number 15 twin butch by Equipe Vitesse Mercedes car pretty much drove over the top of Christian Clean, and we're still not quite sure what happened there. We think it was driver error and a mixture of finding the wrong braking area and the concertina effect of all those cars in lap 1. Thankfully, both drivers okay, and both cars seemingly prepared and fixed and on the way. Another driver who had a big collision yesterday as well was the Boutsen-Guinean car, which had a huge crash. Basically sent it, well, not barrel rolling, but into the tyre barrier, and took a while to fix the tyre barrier and get the car away, and he lost that all on its own in the Boutsen-Guinean car. So they'll be hoping for a better run, and just the sole car running for them as well. So hoping for a better run of it today. And you can see that Honda NSX in the number 11 really struggling for grip, especially when you're going on a slow lap, Elliot. Slow lap's more dangerous here, because you're not going fast enough to get that heat into the tyres, and so you're losing even more grip and time, but then you've got to warm up enough to start your flying lap.
Yeah, so all these cars are designed and developed, and they do a lot of testing programs with the idea that they are only ever going to be raced at full speed. So when they are at suboptimal speeds, it's not only difficult for the drivers, but it's actually difficult for the teams to plan for that because the cars aren't designed to be driven at such low speeds and on such low grip surfaces when there is rain as well, which is why often when there are safety cars, we get as fast a safety car as possible so the field can maintain a pace that is actually almost safer because it keeps the internals of the car up to temp.
Time starting to get a bit faster now. Ollie Milroy's gone up to second at the moment, but he's still about 13.8 seconds off Adam Carroll. So slowly but surely, we were just looking at the number 77 there of Andy Soucek coming out in the Lechner racing car. They had a really good run yesterday, challenged for the podium too. So they will be very pleased with that run because it looked like they were struggling in that first stint, but Andy Soucek got to go from Al Faisal Al-Zubair and really managed to find some speed there. And look, struggling to turn. He's so slow crawling around there. This is probably a bit of a, I'm assuming this is a warm-up lap, but if it is a flying lap, then it's tricky out there. Very, very tricky indeed.
Yeah, he hit the part of the curve, not what he's now in the chicane. That was coming out of turn 7, hit the curve there, and it just kind of pushed him up into the air. And you see the little bollards on the exit of the curves. You don't want to hit those because they can give you a puncture. They can actually rip off the front wing, as they did in one of the other races we have here this weekend. So they're pretty deadly. Don't disrespect them.
Do not disrespect them because we get messages about them being disrespected all the time. Let's have a look at the team Bentley Lazarus coming through here. I mean, they were just amazing yesterday. It was at the hands of Jordan Pepper to begin with. They weren't on pole, but they managed to muscle their way through. And they had such a, let's call it what it was a bit of a torrid season last year, really, up and down, up and down. But with Jordan Pepper and Even Pecklin, they got a very solid driver lineup. And speaking to them yesterday, it's Even Pecklin in the car today. Even Pecklin, he's 19 years old, but he's got such an old head on young shoulders, and he was speaking to him being like, that was amazing second stint, you lost the lead, but you managed to stay calm, you got it back, and then you pulled, by the end, a 10-second gap to second, and he was just saying that, yeah, I just got in the car and drove as quick as I could, simple as, which I suppose as a racing driver is all you're really being paid to do.
Yeah, and I mean, Pecklin did French F4 last year, so he did race at this circuit, but, I mean, you know, wasn't super competitive in French F4. I think he finished 7th here. We're actually seeing the McLaren's got past the Bentley now. Still flashing his lights, so I don't know who's flashing them at.
Is that flashing the lights, or has he got his hazards on?
Potentially. You know, these cars are based on their road-going models, so you do have some of the, you know, important safety bits, but then they strip out all the nice things like aircon and radio and leather seats and all that stuff. But yeah, the essentials are still there.
Well, at the moment, it's Ollie Milroy in the Inception Racing McLaren topping the timesheets at the moment, run by Team Optimum Motorsport there, with a 2-minute 09.5. Then it's Even Pecklin, the first of the pro cars, with a 2.12. Adam Carroll still up there in 3rd with a 2.13. But I have a suspicion these lap times will start to come down as we have 20 minutes left of the session. The first of the Cup cars, actually, Fernando Fortes up in 8th at the moment. So by quite some way, it was just been... now he's being shuttled down as I say that. So, but that's the Cup Am car. First of the Cup Pro-Am cars, Jan Anton Zuski currently up in 6th place, about 5.5 seconds off the lead right now as we watch the number 11 car. Marcus Peverud on board in that Renault Racing Honda NSX, the GT4 European Series Pro-Am winner. Last year he was doing Lamborghini Super Trofeo, so he's switched cars this year. Renault Racing had a bit of an anonymous race yesterday. They worked their way up quite quietly, didn't get involved in any collisions. You can see him there struggling with a bit of traffic as well, and a bit of the front right sort of twitching a little bit as he tries to turn in every single time on turn-in, getting a little bit of a twitch, so not too much front grip there.
Yeah, it's very difficult in this early stage of session, and because we had the red flag as well. But as you can see, there's 3 cars in a row here. There's another 2 up ahead. In the background, we can see a few more. So, you know, you want to try and back off to get space, but if you back off, you lose the temperature. But if you go ahead, you're going to have someone in front of you as well, which compromises your lap. So it's really, really hard in a session like this to get the perfect lap in and try and take pole position.
As we now follow the number 26 and number 28 cars in GT Cup. The 26 car, the purple one just ahead. That was the car for Artur Janos and Marcija Metko.
And Jans Lieberhauser's just taken provisional AM class pole in 3rd place. So we've now got Pro-Am currently on overall pole. Our top Pro driver in 2nd, our top AM driver in 3rd. Actually our top GT Cup Open driver, Jan Antoszewski in 7th place.
That is a mega effort so far for Jan Suzuki in the number 100. Driving for the Alda Motorsport Porsche 911 GT3 Cup Gen 2 car in that. The European Suzuki Cup champion from 2019, I'll have you know.
Very good, very good.
Suzuki Swift a little bit different from what he's driving today, I imagine, as we watch the number 24 car go around now in that Porsche. The Porsches had an all-right race yesterday. They weren't right at the front of the pack because that was mainly dominated by the Bentley and the Mercedes, but it was that Lechner racing car that really managed to shine bright, and you'd expect nothing less from a team operated by the 11-time Super Cup champions. Yeah,
we hypothesised that in the first stint they were really, really quick because the car was set up with a kind of higher ride height and to work on a high fuel load. But when it got to lower fuel load, it just couldn't quite compete with some of the other marks. But they did get some good results, and I think the drivers were happy with the car as well. And generally, you know, Porsche is such a big presence in this championship. They're doing well. And we just watched the number 24 car there in Pro-Am for GT Cup, Matthias Lizowski, who just got up to 5th with that and takes, so yeah, displaces Jan Suzuki. So he is now currently provisional pole for the Cup Pro-Am class, as we ride on board with Andy Soucek. But look at that, Ollie Milroy, purple sector 1, purple sector 2, 2 different classes this, but both right up there. Ollie Milroy currently sits overall pole and Pro-Am pole. Andy Soucek, on the other hand, is a little bit further down, but no, he's not anymore, and he goes provisional pole for the Pro class, 2nd overall. But what can Ollie Milroy do now as he comes across the line? He's going to go way quicker, and he's decided to pit. He's not finishing his lap. He was 1.3 seconds up in that middle sector, decided, no, I've got enough time. I don't need to do it. Question is if anyone else thinks the same and he comes out later on and, you know, there's other cars around him, then he's lost his opportunity. You want to make the most of every single opportunity to get, though. However, with a few of the teams kind of below our commentary box as well, we are going to see what's going to be happening in the pits, as well as the cars on track. It is a wonder why he would bail out of that lap unless he made a massive mistake in that final sector, because the next Pro-Am car back is Marcus Pavrud, and he's nearly 2 seconds off from Ollie Milroy. So you'd think you want a big gap. The more he can get, the more he wants, surely. It may be a case as well that he'd possibly kind of broken track limits, and he was well aware that that wasn't going to count if he got to the end of it, and that would then require another whole lap to get back to the pit. So he thought, you know, just take the quicker route back. And here's Andy Soucek, though, coming across a bit of traffic. He's had a really good set to 1, but this is not going to do him any favours behind one of the Mercedes cars, and the Porsche might be able to use it to his advantage, flashes him a little bit to try and get a bit of speed and momentum, but I think that is not going to go well, and unless they both bail out, I don't think it's going to sit pretty here. Just about gets through, bit of twitch on the steering wheel there, 1.7 up in the middle sector. What can he do in this final sector? If he carries on that pace, he'll take pole away from Ollie Milroy quite nicely. The 2009 Formula 2 champion here, sharing the car with Al-Faisal Al-Zubair, the 2-time Porsche champion from the Middle East. As we enter that tight and twisty final sector, so difficult to get right here. All the drivers finding it the same. You've really got to be able to get the best out of the lap and get the best out of the car. You've just got to find that rhythm, and it takes a little bit to build up, and especially when the track is as cold as it is. Maybe we're now suddenly starting to see, with 40 minutes left on the clock, drivers starting to find the limits and hook things up quite nicely. But what can Andy Soucek do as he comes across the line? Currently second in currently pole. That does for him 1.1 in the final sector. He goes purple, so that is overall pole position currently for Andy Soucek and overall pro as well. So and Jens Lieberhauser, look at that from the number 14 car, goes provisional pole in Am, 2nd overall, just under 0.4 of a second back from Andy Soucek in the pro. Yeah, and he'd had his previous lap deleted for track limits, but the lap before that as well was good enough for 6th. We're currently following him on the screen now. He must be very happy in that car. Well, they've got a great driver line as well, because Florian Schultz started the race for them yesterday as they decided to bail out there, the scene of the big Turn 3 crash yesterday. Florian Schultz had a great battle yesterday, the highest AM car by quite some time, in the top 8 for the majority of the race, and battling with the pro cars, and able to put up a good defence. So him and Liebhauser, a great pairing there for that number 14 car. As we watch Adam Carroll now, who's was up in the first sector, a tad down in the second, so he's losing time through this lap. But Adam Carroll really enjoyed his run yesterday in that Balfour Motorsport team, who are confirmed for a full season this year in the International GT Open, so we'll be seeing a lot more of that beautiful Audi R8. But what can he do as he comes across the line, sharing the car with Sean Balfe as well, who'll get in later on in the race? What can he do?
He goes pole. Pro-Am pole. And overall pole for Adam Carroll in the number 22. 7/10, nearly 8/10 away in front of Andy Soucek. So although he was up in the, or down on time in the middle sector, he's clawed back quite a lot of time in that final sector. With a personal best as well, with a 51.8 in that final sector. 2:05.9 overall for him, to a 2:06.7 back to second for Andy Soucek. So again, we have a Pro-Am overall pole, and then a Pro in second, and then an Am in overall third.
And
so
down in 9th and 10th is our top GT Cup Open drivers, Mateusz Lewowski and Jan Antaszewski. They are separated by 1.4 seconds now, because Lewowski's just posted a 2:11. So, well, actually, no, one of the AM drivers has just separated them as well, Andrzej Lewandowski. So we've got our top 3 GT Cup Open Europe cars as well, kind of knocking on the doors of the top 10. Currently 5 seconds off the pace of Adam Carroll at the front of the field. He's got a 7/10 advantage to Soucek, so there's quite a big pace spread here. It's going to be very interesting in the race.
Adam Carroll wants another bite at the cherry here. He thinks he can go faster. Let's see how he gets on. And that Audi R8, we think potentially not as quick in the straights compared to the Bentley and the McLaren, but doing a fab job yesterday, because that car really does stick to the ground quite nicely.
Yeah, it's a very nice car to drive on these kinds of tracks, and you know, a lot of these drivers do have experience of Paul Ricard, and a lot of the cars have experience of Paul Ricard, because it is where SROs, we've just seen a bollard being disrespected there. We did get quite a few warnings of that. Another lap time deleted, that's car 14, that's Jens Lieberhauser, and it's slower than his current lap, so it's not going to affect his position in the order.
So Jens Lieberhauser holds on to overall third at the moment, and Am pole position. Adam Carroll comes across the line, personal best second sector, personal best final sector, goes quicker but not quick enough, because he immediately gets dropped down to second as Ollie Milroy comes to say hi and goes right at the top. 1/10 of a second separating the top 2 in Pro-Am right now. Then Andy Soucek in third, Jens Lieberhauser for the Am classes in fourth, Marcus Sattler currently sits in fifth, Patrick Kaprinski in that JP beautiful black and gold car sits in the McLaren, sits in sixth. Even Pecklin, yesterday's winners, just go third in the Pro class, and we saw that yesterday with the Team Bentley. They're not as quick as those Pro-Am cars over one lap, but overall they've got the quicker car.
Yeah, and some of these drivers don't share a car either, so they get the advantage of just learning how the track's evolving throughout, and they gain so much time during that pit stop phase, because they don't have to kind of jump out and figure out. And we've just had another bollard being knocked over at the final corner. Potentially the track's getting a little more difficult to drive on, as we're seeing a lot more mistakes, but also a lot more personal best sectors, so maybe everyone's just finding the limit and pushing it a little too much.
We're just focusing there on one of our GT Cup cars at the moment. That's the number 66, Vincenzo Sospiri Lamborghini Huracan, driven by Andrzej Lewandowski, the 2018 GT Open Cup champion. Currently, though, down in 12th, but he is second of the GT Cup Pro-Am cars. Sorry, no, he's first of the GT Cup Pro-Am cars, I should say. So, Am cars, apologies, in that number 66. So he's having a decent time, but that's actually 11th overall. So a really, really good run for him at the moment. Fernando Fortes is the second of the Cup Am cars, down in 15th position. And as we see Adam Carroll come through screen, who decides to get into the pit lane, the hazards of Ollie Milroy are still going off at the front of that car, but he is doing personal best Sector 1, Sector 2, currently on Pro-Am pole and overall pole with a 2:03.8. Has he been able to go any quicker? We shall see. No. Loses a few tenths in that final sector, so can't go any quicker for Ollie Milroy. I'm wondering why he's got these hazards on. Don't you normally put hazards on if you're not sure where you're going?
Quite possibly, yeah. Maybe it's just like a software error, something like that. But also, if you're seeing, if you've got 2 different light colours as well, it might potentially be an advantage there. Seeing the Audi R8, obviously Audi R8s are famous for being quattros out on the road, but not so the case in International GT Open. Seeing a shot the McLaren coming across the line to complete its lap. The start-finish line is quite far down the pit straight here, so the exit, the final corner, you know, you've got quite a long time to wait until you cross the line, and it is an improvement in 6th place, although he's just been beaten. I think Pecklin's gone up to third, Patrick Kapinski up to 4th as well.
It is so competitive, this grid. And that is Jens Lieberhauser, though, who we're seeing in the AM category, who has just gone provisional overall pole by just under 1/10 of a second from Ollie Milroy. That is an amazing result for the AKM by Antonelli Motorsport team, driving that Mercedes AMG GT3 car. Wow, brilliant result.
Yeah, and we got the GT Cup Open cars fighting side by side through the final sector. Watching now the Aston Martin and the Trans Am Eurocar, now over to the Team Lazarus Bentley, which is currently in 4th place, 1.2 seconds off, is setting its personal best through the first sector though.
And first of the pro cars as well, so currently sitting on pole in that category, but as Elliot said, down in 4th. Andy Soucek, the next pro back, currently 6th overall. But we're seeing this, it's so competitive between all 3 categories of racing here, and in GT Cup as well. Currently in the Cup Pro Am class, it's Matthias Lizowski at 11th overall, but pole in that category from Nico Bedonk and Jan Anton Zuski. And then the first of the Cup Cup Am cars is Andrzej Lewandowski, and then Fernando Fortes 2nd for Cup Am currently, and Albert Estrago is in that beautiful Trans Am car, has just actually been knocked down to 4th in Cup Am by Glauco Solieri. As we carry on watching the Team Lazarus Bentley. Huge machine this. See what they can do over the line. Marcus Pavarou just slots in to 4th as Jens Lieberhauser sets a quicker lap time as well. Let's go even faster. So it's Lieberhauser who's on another lap now. The big issue here does look like it's going to be traffic as we're watching that number 14 car, the GTOpen car. The Mercedes of Jens Lieberhauser. What can he do coming across the line? Bit of traffic right there, might have been able to use that to his advantage. Cuts across the line, it's a 2:05.6, so no, couple of seconds down in the end on his fastest time so far. Currently sitting pretty on top though, with a 2:03.7. Then just under 1/10 back, it's Ollie Milroy with a 2:03.8. Then even Pecklin in the Bentley, a 2:03.9. Adam Carroll is 4th. Yuki Nomoto sort of silently cropped up to 5th there in all of that. So a good run from the Lamborghini car. As we watch the other Lamborghini, the number 17, that's Coach McKenzie for the HP Racing International, 58-year-old German.
And currently 2nd place in the AM classification, although there is 16 places on the actual grid between our 2 lead AM cars. So
8.1 seconds the gap between the top 2 AM cars right now, which is a huge gap for that.
Yeah, and Andy Soucek has just gone on provisional pole, a 2-minute 3.023, 7 tenths up on Lieberhauser. Adam Carroll is improving though, fastest first sector of anyone. Haven't seen his 2nd sector time. He is at the back of this queue of cars. We're going back to the Lazarus Bentley. Still in 4th place, but also improving.
Here we go then, 5 minutes left to go. It's now starting to spice up. Andy Soucek, as Elliot said, has put it on provisional pole right now. Overall and in the pro class, 3/10 back to Ollie Milroy. Jens Lieberhauser, 1st of the AMs, 3rd overall, then is even Pecklin. But Adam Carroll is on a quick lap. Was he able to improve in that final sector? We're still waiting for him to come through, so we will find out. Even Pecklin up to 3rd with that as well. Knocks Jens Lieberhauser down to 4th. And here now we pick up the Audi R8 of Bath Motorsports, Adam Carroll. Great to see them in the championship this year. Strong hopes for them this season as well. And that is a 2:02.8, which puts him on provisional pole with 4 minutes on the clock. Adam Carroll in the Bath Motorsport car with a 2:02.8, with a personal best final sector. And a bit of flashing to show off for it. So it's Carroll from Soucek, and car 32 has stopped in a safe position, apparently, according to our timing screen. So that looks like it's one of the Cup cars. That is probably Fernando Fortes, who has stopped out on track in the 360 Racing team. So we might spot a Porsche 911. There are no yellow flags, so it seems like he's outside of the track. So come to a stop there. It's a shame for him because he's currently 2nd in the Cup Am category, 18th overall as well.
And we had a shot there of Fernando Navarrete in the pit lane, GT Cup Open Europe driver. Several cars have pitted. All of them are actually GT Cup Open cars, so they may feel like they can't improve with all the GT Open guys on track. Still following the Lazarus. Pecklin has been improving lap by lap, but just isn't actually moving up the order. Everyone else around him is improving just as much, and he's going to lose a bit of time there passing the Honda in the final sector, so this could cost him as well.
Oh, but you say that, he's nearly gone half a second up in that middle sector, so we'll see what he can do. Adam Carroll still out on track as well, so we might see another lap from him too. It's currently Adam Carroll, Andy Soucek, Yuki Namoto, the top three. Mikel Beretta's snuck up to fourth there for the number 63 car. What can even Pecklin do as he crosses the line?
Goes up to third place, so he's gained 3 places there, but he's 2/10 off the top. Andy Soucek prior to that was very quick in the final sector, but was an agonising 0.062 seconds slower than his previous lap, so no improvement for him. We're on board him as he comes through the chicane on the Mid-South Straight, a very, very long straight on this circuit. Mirrors the runway, which is opposite this track, a private airport. I think Soucek would like to be starting at the front of this one, because yesterday he had to come all the way from the back.
Yeah, we rode on board with Al-Faisal Al-Zubair, who was driving the car at the start of the race for the rolling start, right on the start, finish straight. And you just can't see anything, really. It's a miracle, actually, that not more cars were involved in an incident, because you just cannot see. And the concertina effect is so huge here, especially in those opening few laps with cars going everywhere trying to jostle for position. We saw the Bentleys get tied up in an accident this time last year and nearly get tied up in a similar accident this year when they had a little look down the inside of turn 1. But Jordan Pepper able to do a sterling effort there and not get involved in an incident, as we see Andy Soucek come through the final corner. 15 turns around this circuit, Paul Ricard, 5.8 kilometres, 3.6 miles. Can Andy Soucek take provisional pole? Yes, he can. Andy Soucek currently in pole for Lechner Racing, back from Adam Carroll, who is nearly 3/10 back from him. Then it's even Pecklin in that Bentley in third, Yuki Namoto fourth, Mikel Beretta's in fifth. Ollie Milroy, who was at the top of the timing boards at the start of the session, fallen back a tad to sixth.
48 seconds to go. Drivers who have crossed the line now will have one more chance to get pole. I think every driver is in sector 2 or sector 3, so we're going to see at least one more flying lap from everyone. Soucek currently 2 tenths ahead of Carroll. Milroy didn't improve in the final sector, but improved overall. Pecklin again improved in 4th place. He improves again. He's just set a 2-minute 3.098, but he's still almost half a second off pole. So Pecklin very good in the race yesterday, but doesn't have the qualifying pace.
No, but then again, Jordan Pepper wasn't on pole yesterday, and they started a few rows back, so they were able to come through. So perhaps that Bentley is just struggling for one lap pace overall, but currently sitting at second in the pro class.
Well, it's a heavier car as well, so even on the lowest fuel load, it's still going to be heavier than everyone else around it, which isn't going to be good on a basically a sprint.
And that, though, is the checkered flag. I think we still have a few cars setting final laps, but currently Adam Carroll on provisional pole. We'll look to Ollie Milroy to try and displace him. He set a personal best in the first sector, can't quite improve in the middle sector for Ollie Milroy in the Pro-Am. What can Andy Soucek do? Yuki Namoto, they're just crossing the line. That Lamborghini goes up to third. Great result for them. Adam Carroll can't improve in his first sector. Currently, it's Carroll, Soucek, Namoto, Milroy, Pecklin and Beretta.
And Lewandowski's a car we need to watch as well, going for GT Cup Open pole. He's actually gone second, so he's just set a 2-minute 9. Lost out on GT Cup Open pole by 0.01 seconds to Nico Verdonk.
And Andy Soucek can't improve in that Lechner Porsche, so he sits second. So unless Ollie Milroy can pull something out the bag here in this final sector, we may have Adam Carroll on pole, but he's going for a faster lap time anyways. He's just got a personal best in that second sector, 9 thousandths of a second up. Ollie Milroy does do better though. He finds it in that final sector. Ollie Milroy sits on provisional pole with a 2.021, 2 tenths to Adam Carroll. Adam Carroll needs to find something here in this final sector to try and steal back pole as he comes through this final twisty sector 3, hits a bollard for good measure. Pecklin slides up to 4th, displacing Yuki Namoto. So the Bentley was the second of the pro cars currently. Andy Soucek on pole for the pro class, but what can Adam Carroll do? He's agonisingly close, but only incrementally increasing his time. What can he do as he cuts across the timing beam? Adam Carroll does do it and secures overall pole for the International GT Open Race 2. A 2:020 for him, just under a tenth of a second to Ollie Milroy.
Yeah, and Andy Soucek in third, our pro class pole man. He took pole by 0.109 seconds there. Jens Lieberhauser in ninth, AM class pole. He's got an advantage of 5.2 seconds to Coach McKenzie, but this time there's only actually 4 places on the grid between them, so that could all change by turn 1. GT Cup Open Europe overall pole taken by 0.01 seconds, but the Cup Pro Am pole by 0.8 over Mateusz Lazowski, and the GT Cup Open Europe Am pole with Andrei Lewandowski, who is 3.3 seconds ahead of Albert Stregas in 20th place.
Well, I think we're going to be in store for a pretty tight race this afternoon, but there is your pole sitter, Adam Carroll, sharing that car with Sean Balfe as well for Balfe Motorsport. Sits on pole position for the race 2 later this afternoon. Ollie Milroy will start from second in Inception Racing McLaren. Andy Soucek is third. Ivan Peklin, yesterday's race winner, will go from fourth in that Team Lazarus Bentley. Then it's Yuki Namoto, Mikel Beretta, the next to the pro cars. Then it's Marcus Pavarud, Patrick Kaprinski in that 88 black and gold McLaren for JP Motorsport. Jens Lieberhauser on pole for the AM class, 9th overall. Then Nick Moss managed to put it in 10th for the Inception Racing team with a 2:057. Your pole time was a 2:020. Then it's Alexander Moiseev in the AKM Motorsport Mercedes. They'll be looking to improve on that. They had better qualifying pace yesterday. Marcus Sattler as well is thinking the same thing in that win with Mercedes. Coach McKenzie back in 13th in the AM category. Nico Verdonk for Pro Sport Racing is 14th. Andrzej Lewandowski 15th. Kipriani 16th. Lazowski, Anton Zuski and Klingelberg make up the next few spots. And then it's Albert Estrago is the second of the Cup AM cars, ahead of Glauco Solieri, Masij Darmetko, Fernando Fortes, Oscar Artiso, Stefano Bozzoni is 25th, Fernando Navarrete. Well, what a exciting qualifying session that was, and it's really setting us up for an all-action race. I think Adam Carroll will go from pole, Ollie Milroy in second, and Andy Soucek in third. And the Balfe Motorsport guys will be really happy with that because they had to fight their way through the race yesterday.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant job there.
So Adam Carroll overall pole and Pro-Am pole. Andy Soucek will be the first of the pro runners going from third overall, but that is pro pole. Marcus Pavarud in the number 11, back in 7th overall, Pro-Am pole for him though. And then Jens Lieberhauser with a great drive to 9th overall, securing AM pole in GT Open.
You know what, this may be the first pole for the Audi R8 in GT Open. I don't think there was an Audi that took pole last year. I'm going to quickly speed through the whole of GT Open history and try and find out.
Well, Adam Carroll will be pretty happy with that effort either way. An absolutely sterling qualifying from him, the 38-year-old from Northern Ireland. Formula 3 champion, A1 GP champion. He's driven everything under the sun and can do it very quickly indeed, and he proves it again here in the International GT Open. Adam Carroll is your pole man and will start the race from the number 1 spot, which is where every driver wants to be. Congrats all round as well with the Inception Racing boys. And so hopefully we'll hear from Adam in a little bit. But I think, Elliot, it's going to be an all-action race. We're not going to know where to look because we're going to have so many more cars on the grid for this afternoon's race because, of course, we're combining GT Cup and GT Open. Yeah,
it's going to be a very, very tricky race for everyone. And looking through the stats, I do think this is, at least with the current generation of the Audi R8, this is the very first pole position for that car. So that's a good question for Alfredo to ask in the interview.
Well, here are your top 3 overall. Andy Soucek in the number 77 Porsche Lettner racing car. Then in second, spoke to Ollie Milroy yesterday, in good spirits. battling with his teammate. He'll be pleased to be ahead of him though today on the grid. He goes from second, and there is your pole man in that beautiful Audi R8 GT3 LMS for Balfour Motorsport. Let's hear from Adam now.
Adam Carroll, what a great return to the GTOpen for Balfour Motorsport with your pole here at Paul Ricard ahead of race 2. How was it?
Yeah, we're very happy to obviously get pole position. That was a tricky session. It was quite surprisingly wet in Sector 1. This tarmac actually is quite difficult to see how damp it is. So as we drove through Sector 1 for the first few times, it was very, very tricky. So through the whole session, it started to get drier, but it still was a little damp in the end. So Sector 1 was definitely very, very tricky. And then you had to just push as hard as you could through 2 and 3.
Well done, and all the best for the race.
Well, that was your pole man, Adam Carroll. Ollie Milroy will go from second and Andy Soucek in third. Do join us for the race later this afternoon, but don't go anywhere because we'll have Euro Formula in just a few moments.